We have different strengths. You are way more organized than I am. I happen to be way better looking than you are. I don't know what to tell you.
It's the truth. It's the truth. It's not being arrogant when it's the truth.
Welcome to the Two Authors Podcast, an entertaining chat show hosted by best-selling mystery and thriller authors Douglas Pratt and Nicholas Harvey, in lively, humorous and informative conversation with distinguished guests who share their thoughts and experience about forging a successful author career.
Welcome to the Two Authors Podcast, presented by Vellum. Create beautiful books for every platform with Vellum. Welcome, everybody. How's it going, Nick?
You did that. You did that all with a pretty straight face, and then you giggled like a schoolgirl at the end of it.
I mean, I don't know what you wanted. You're a cute fella, so I'm sitting here looking at your face, guys, and I mean...
Who's coming on the show?
Oh, today we have an awesome show. We have a couple who is phenomenally, just a powerhouse couple. They just came out with a new book, Gravewater Lake, which just blew it away. It was in Amazon First Reads in February and just took off. It launched, I think it was March 1st, and is doing really well. But it's AM Strong and Sonya Sargent Strong, and they are going to be here in just a minute. But for that, we have a great question. And this one comes from Drew in Phoenix. His question for us, which is going to be apt because we're talking to a couple of co-authors, and you and I happen to co-author as well, and we've done some other projects. But when co-authoring, has anyone ever written something that the other person doesn't like and ends up vetoing? Nicholas, you first.
Everything Doug sends me? No.
Everything.
Not true at all. No, I don't think I don't think there's ever been anything that's been a no. I think we sketch it out. I mean, we don't plot the whole book out to start with. We plot sections out, and then we run out of our plotting bit. We get on a Zoom call and go, okay, where are we going next? And so we have a pretty good idea. I mean, we've had a couple of things where it's like, oh, no, that guy was already dead, Doug. He was in a plane, not a helicopter, Nick.
Yeah, well, I've done that. He didn't have pants on. Yes, I know. Yeah. That's right. Well, like you said, you and I work together well. I think a big thing when you're going to do a collaboration with anybody is it's all about, like, remembering you're checking your ego at the door and remembering that you're working together. And it's also, we joke all the time, like, I said to you earlier too, you were my other wife. I forget whether I talked to you about something or talked to Ashley about something. So, and I think that's a good thing because we have different strengths. You are way more organized than I am. I happen to be way better looking than you are. I don't know what to tell you.
It's the truth. It's the truth. It's not being arrogant when it's the truth.
No, but truly, I think we come together. We want to come up with a good story. So we know that each of us has a different take. And if you're willing to listen to each other, then you can go, oh, okay, wow, that's a good idea. And we come up with some great stuff. We also have a good time. For us, I think it's kind of like playing in our own little playground together because we'll send it back and forth. When I do some stuff with my co-writer, Elaine, it's great. We have a lot of fun just coming up with ideas and talking about the storylines and stuff. And I know you and I both have done some of the tropical author collabs with Graceless, Timeless, and Shameless, but and you've done a whole lot more because you're a glutton for punishment. I just did the one. But it's fun to have that opportunity to share with each other. And you can use collaborations for a lot of things. I think working with other people helps you broaden your audience, but also broaden your skills because, again, we have different skill sets. And you remind me all the time that I am repeating words on a constant basis because I write all the time. As he highlights that book, oh, yes. You use the word tangential 3 times in this paragraph. And then sometimes you highlight things. I don't even know what this word means. I'm like, yeah, I know. It's because you're British. You don't know. But truly, it is about, I think the big thing is about making sure that you have open communication. We talk about what we're doing. We go, if I send you something back, I think I just sent you some back with some notes like, I don't remember if we did this last time. It's always about remembering that we're working together, and I'm lucky to remember what I do in my own books without adding in what we did back and forth. So we have to make sure we put that aside and work this as a project. So I think that's the best way. So
I think it's, respect is a big word for me. It's, I'm a big proponent of living your life with respect for people and, do you treat people as you'd like to be and all that kind of thing. So it can get tricky. I've done some that have gone into some tricky places, but as long as it's dealt with respectfully, then it comes out in the end.
I think the smart thing is to never collaborate with somebody you don't like, unless it's for a lot of money.
I was going to say, I don't like doing anything with people I don't like.
Let's move on to our guests, because I'm really excited to chat with AAM and Sonya Sargent Strong. So let's bring them on and let's chat with them now. So welcome to the show, Sonya and Anthony. It's great to have you here.
Thank you. It's great to be here.
Tell us a little bit how you got started. I mean, what was your first book? How did y'all start writing?
My first book was... technically, it was right after I left school, and I wrote a horrendous zombie book that I thought was really good at the time. I think it's still in my parents' attic back in the UK, printed out on the old computer paper with like the daisy wheel stuff on it.
The holes at the side, yeah.
I think it's also on a 5.5-inch floppy somewhere, but I don't know how I'm going to read that at this point.
You can probably take it somewhere. There's somebody that's got it.
Sure, someone still has.
Throw that thing up on
somewhere.
Amazon. Let's just,
So that was my first book, and then I read that and didn't do anything for like 20 years. The next book started almost like a dare because Sonya, I was talking to Sonya, and she said that I said to her that I could write a book in 3 weeks. So
I'm pretty sure he said 10 days.
No, I said 3 weeks.
I think it was 10 days. It took him 3 weeks.
Well,
I love it. We're going to get onto the questions about how we work together, and already they're in a Barney. We're only 2 minutes in.
That book ended up being the first book that we published in 2015, and it's the first book of a 15-book, soon-to-be 16-book series called What Vengeance Comes. That's under his, not A.M. Strong name, under Anthony M. Strong pen name. So that was really your first book.
That was the first.
Do you write all of them in 3 weeks now, or have you slowed down on the?
I did write the last book in my 6-book Patterson Blake series. I wrote in 4 weeks because I put the pre-sale up and then procrastinated for almost a year and then panicked.
Perfect.
There it is. Yes, that's the bane of all of our writing existence. So.
It is. I mean, I can do it if I need to, but I prefer not to. I latest one I'm working on, which is for Thomas and Mercer. I think we've been on that for 2 months?
I think it was the end of November that we started. I think we're in the last 2 days though. So it's right there, right at the end.
I just finished one yesterday that I started it at the beginning of January. So I did it in 80,000 words and right a little over a month. So I was pretty pleased with that too. So yeah.
Doug's on this manic writing kick at the moment. He's trying to ramp it up, and he taunts me. He sends me, I did this many words today. And I've decided to ignore him because I'm not going to be able to do that.
Well, but the difference is, like, where I am, it's cold. And so I want to do all my writing now. So when it gets warm and summery, I can go out on the boat. And see, you're already out on the boat. So I have to, you can be lazy about it. How about you, Simon? What was your start in it? Was it just...
Well, it was his writing, and we started sort of plotting the books together as time went on. And then we'd, come up with ideas and argue about ideas and, do all that stuff ever. And then when we wanted to switch to something else, because the Anthony M. Strong brand is sort of like a action adventure, supernatural, that type of book. So we determined that we needed to do a different pen name because we both self-publish and traditionally publish, but we wanted to do a different pen name because it's a different genre. So anybody who does this sort of thing knows that you like combining all the different types of genres into one pen name can be very confusing for the algorithms and things. So when we started the A.M. Strong Patterson Blake series, which is more straight mystery thriller, FBI thriller kind of thing, I also jumped in. So we started writing together at that point. But to be clear, he is really the head writer, and we develop the plots together. And then I jump in and I do the heavy editing, and I add in, some more details, like if there's any female clothing type stuff, or
female clothing,
any of that sort of, stuff that softens the female characters. He's very good at writing female characters, but guys don't tend, or at least he doesn't tend to take note of some of, those things. So I kind of add in more of the emotional stuff and whatever. So that's
like the shoes. Like I'm always being pointed out that there's no shoes. Like, I was like, well,
Shoes
I don't
are
pay
very
attention.
There's a lot of shoes in our books now, which I wish there wasn't.
And women don't pull on clothes, by the way. We don't pull on clothes.
You do in my books.
Now, see, like, I keep up all sorts of, like, cheat sheets of, like, maybe architectural things, but I hadn't thought about doing, like, shoes. I would have to, like, have the different kinds of shoes, like, right there with my different kinds of guns that I'm using, so.
I write female protagonists, so now I'm paranoid about pulling. And I'm like, how do I describe when they put on their clothes? I've never had anyone say, that's not how women put on the clothes.
If you have any issues with female clothing scenes, feel free to just send them my way.
You will get 15 paragraphs back.
That's 15 paragraphs he doesn't have to write, so you can go ahead and put them in.
That's
a good point. Good point. KU words.
KU words. Let's kind of jump, because obviously this is a beautiful way to segue into it. But so writing with a partner, and especially like a life partner like this, I mean, it's got to be rewarding, but I can imagine it would be a little challenging too. So, like, how do you navigate that creative differences or anything that you deal with?
Mostly wine.
Yeah, no, if you've seen any other interviews we do, it's true. It really is wine. After our day is done.
Who outlasts the other one? The last one's still sitting at the table.
Sometimes.
That's the one that gets it published. He's still unconscious, so he like slides in there, yes.
I don't remember writing the last 4 books. They're a blur.
No, seriously.
That worked for Stephen King, so.
That's true.
After our days are done and we're kind of, settling into our evening schedule, usually before we have dinner a few nights a week, I'll come into his office, which is where we are right now, and we'll open a bottle of wine and we'll just hang out, and then we'll talk about, we spend a lot of time when we're doing that talking about plotting issues and things, because when we're starting a story, first we have the germ of the idea, and then, we'll talk about the beginning and the end, and then the middle kind of fills itself in. So the way that we really work is he likes to start to write the beginning of the book, and he likes to get a certain amount in, like maybe 5,000 words or 10,000 words, to get a feel for the characters and what direction they're heading in. And then we start making, sort of plans along the way. We do sometimes use Plotter, which I really like. I'm like the spread. Yeah, I'm the spreadsheet queen. I do the marketing. And so I keep track of all the numbers, the books sold, the Facebook ads, the Amazon ads, and, at the end of every month, what do I adjust and whatever. So I really like writing everything down. He does less, but we will use Plotter for things like confusing timelines, like the book that's coming out in March, Gravewater Lake. That one has dual timelines with 2 different sets of characters. And so it became very important after a while to have that timeline where we could see, this chapter is, this day and this day and this day, so that we could weave them together in a way that made sense at the end. But, really we just, he starts the book, we come up with the idea, he starts the book, and then we start discussing along the way. As long as we always know where it's ending up, what the twist is, we find that it sort of fills itself in with wine in the evenings.
So from everything you said there, you covered about 7 questions that we have that we need to try and expand on. So the first one I have is working together. And you mentioned Anthony has an office, so presumably you have an office, so you have separate workspaces. So there's a door between you and what have you, so that you keep that separate. But at the end of the day, do you have boundaries that you've set? Have you found that there's a way of setting rules like, okay, we're done with business and now we're going to go have dinner, and or does it just bleeds across and yeah?
I'll sometimes wake up in the middle of the night and pick up the phone and start dictating a paragraph that's popped into my head. And then I'll hear a mumbled, "What are you doing?" from the other side of the bed. So, it never really stops.
So it's of great interest to us because Ashley has been working with Doug now for a while. She started last year, and my wife this year has started working with me. And it's something we never said we'd do. So we're trying to find the boundaries and set rules and stuff just so it doesn't interfere with our relationship in any way. So it's of great curiosity how you kind of find those limits of what you can do. So you're not talking about business 24 hours a day,
We do a lot, though.
We kind of do. Yeah. I mean, we'll go over we live on the coast, so we'll drive over to Orlando because there's restaurants over there that we like, or meeting friends in the evening, and along the way we'll just talk in the car about plotting, and we'll talk about marketing and other things. So And then most of our friends are author friends, so then we talk about it all over again with them. So in general, we really don't stop sleeping. We set a boundary that when we're asleep, we're not working.
Oh, and we are watching Severance right now, so we stopped for.
Yeah.
I haven't watched the latest episode, but man, Severance is phenomenal. So yeah,
I love it. I do.
Yeah.
I just hope they know where they're going, because
I do.
We don't want a lost situation.
Yeah, no, that's exactly what I just said that with my wife. The same thing. Like it needs to have some. Hope there's a plot. No Game of Thrones. Yeah. So anyway, we should have a whole podcast on Severance. So
if we're talking about separation and work, I mean, really, we do some different things. Like I mentioned, I do the marketing stuff, and that's really we've been doing it kind of since 2015. So first we got into the Facebook ads, and then the Amazon ads, and I'm terrible about social media, but I'm trying. So I kind of do that stuff, and he does more of the straight writing stuff. He also, in a former life, was a graphic designer. Mm-hmm. So the covers of the books, the interiors of the books, the stuff like that, he does that sort of stuff. So we do have differentiation in some of the things that we do with the business. But the thing that I do like about working together is that we are both dedicated to the success of the writing as a career. And that's, I think that's something where some of our friends have spouses that are not really involved at all, or don't seem to have much interest, or don't read their books, or whatever. And I feel thankful that we are united in our career, especially moving forward, and for the success of being able to write full time. We're very lucky.
Yeah, we know some friends who their spouses don't read their books, and it's a tricky one. I don't know what I'd do if she's my first line of, she gets the chapters before anyone else. They come off from me and go to her, and that immediate input is quite important to me. So it would be strange. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think too, the honesty, if you have the kind of relationship where you can be honest, and that does sometimes lead to fights or discussions. I'll read something and I'll come in and I'll be like, what, like the last two chapters, like they're just, for some reason they're falling flat. I can tell, because I've been editing for a long time now, if my mind starts to wander, or I stop reading and I pop onto social media, or I do something else, then immediately I know, oh, there's a problem with this one. If I'm riveted, when I'm reading, then I know that we're on the right track. So there are different things that different ways that I can tell if there's an issue or the pacing is off or whatever. But being able to tell him that and be honest about it is something that I think just makes the books a lot better.
I can tell when Cheryl reads and she doesn't find typos, that she was really engrossed in what she was reading and forgot to look for the typos. So that's always a good indicator.
I've said the same thing.
Yeah.
I always say, Ashley, is my favorite note that she puts in my books is she puts eye roll at the end of a sentence because she thinks it's ridiculous.
Don't get any ideas.
Yeah, well, yeah, but then I usually double down at that point. I'm like, oh, you think that's ridiculous? Wait until you see this. So,
he takes it as a challenge.
I'm like, okay, you want that? I'll show you. So I'll bring in an alligator.
Yeah, this book's a 12 eye roller.
So I'm curious. It's having started out as indie authors and then moving into a more traditional thing, like what was the decision that kind of led y'all to pursue the traditional path? And it sounds like you're doing both still. I guess that makes how do you find that different, and what challenges you have in that?
We felt that going traditional would open up a new avenue of readers. There are certain marketing benefits to being traditional, like being able to get an Amazon First Reads, which gets you out to I don't know how many readers, because apparently they won't tell you what your numbers are for your downloads on that.
She said they might.
She said they might.
Potential film deals, things like that.
It's harder to get into things like film deals and stuff like that without the agent. So it really was more of having a dual outlet for the marketing and for getting the books out there, and being able to get into distribution with a company like Thomas and Mercer, obviously, or Amazon, and have a lot of reach that's not available to us as indie authors. And then that also, just on the first reads, we've seen our other books that are indie books start to tick up in sales, because we've had so many people looking at our author page and our other books from the one that they've just downloaded. So it was always a plan to go, I guess, hybrid, whatever you want to call it. It was just, obviously, it's easier to think it than do it. So it took us a while to get the agent and get the trad deal and get in the door with that.
The decision's the first step, right? So you've then actually got to get someone to take you.
That's the easy part.
Yeah. And to be clear, we are passionately indie. Like, we both love having the absolute control over everything from, the book cover to when it releases, whether or not to do pre-orders, where we want to take a story. The John Decker series, which is under the Anthony M. Strong name, that first book that we put out in 2015 and has been rewritten twice since, by the way, because it was like 53,000 words the first time.
So there's still room for that zombie book. You still got time to rewrite it.
I haven't read that one. But I have a feeling there's some editing.
She's like, no, that's too much. Yeah.
We're heading to the UK in May, so maybe I'll go up in the attic and find it for you, and then
look it up. Our friend Nick Sullivan is just releasing a zombie book. He's just finished it, and it's going to his editor. It's his second in his series, and he writes, tropical books basically. But he started off doing but he did a Bigfoot book, and now he's done a zombie.
I was going to say he writes tropical books.
I suspect his is probably better than mine, though.
But yeah, I mean, we love being indie, but we did after a while that there's a ceiling for how much you can do. Like financially, it's great. You figure out the marketing, you write a good book, you do, great editing, you make sure it's catchy, as you guys know, and then you just, build on the sales over the years. But we did want the opportunity to just get out to more readers. And we felt like we had sort of hit a wall and we couldn't get any further. Like, we'd had people who, what is it when the film people come to you who are interested in, we had some people interested in optioning us before we had an agent, and we just really weren't sure how to handle that. So, and I will say that in dealing with an agent and a publisher, the editing process is amazing because it goes through 4 editors after me. So
you get the developmental editor, the line editor, they're and then
the
finally,
reader.
They do what they call a cold read, which is where they throw it out to someone with no knowledge of the manuscript, and then they send you notes back.
Yeah, and our agent also reads it, and she has, she's really great at it too, and she has a lot of opinions too. So we've learned a lot in the last couple of years going traditional. So our developmental agent, her name is Charlotte Herscher. So we have a WWCD when we're writing the plots now. What would Charlotte do? So, we took notes and we really, take that to heart. It's like, don't talk about what they're eating all the time. It doesn't matter what they're having for dinner.
Don't talk about shoes.
Don't talk about shoes. Certain things we pick out now. Yeah.
They're like a little devil on your shoulder, barking at you as you're writing now.
I think that's how authors who really start moving up and doing more start realizing, like, once they realize their mistakes that they write, and we all have those little tails that we stick in there. I think we start realizing what they are. If you have people who can point those out, that it's easier to correct that so it doesn't keep repeating down the road, and your writing definitely changes. So I think that's fascinating. Yeah.
That has to have adapted your writing on the indie side of it, all the writing you're doing, right? We don't unlearn. We don't only apply it over this side. So that feedback you're getting, well, some may, but what you're learning through going through a much deeper editing process, has that really changed the way you go about it on your indie books?
I think it has. I spend a lot more time now deleting lines and thinking, that's not going to cut it. So I guess you don't know what you don't know. And on the indie side, to do the amount of editing that we get with the trad would cost a fortune. I don't know how much Charlotte costs. I'm sure it's not cheap. To do that with 4 different rounds of editing, I don't think you'd make your money back on an indie book.
Eventually.
You might, but you'd have to be really up there to get your money back on that kind of investment.
I think the best story is when The Last Girl Left was our first traditional book that came out in April 2024. We thought it was great. And, we submitted it to 15 agents and 13 came back with an offer. And we had 3 different publishers that all wanted it. And we decided to go with Thomas and Mercer. So we thought, this book is amazing, right? And then we got our first edit back from the developmental editor.
And they tear
and we
it
were
apart.
like, this book is shit.
And then we realized that we can't write.
But wait, I have an end to the story. So we did a lot of rewriting that first editing session, because we also had pre-sales up for some of our indie books, because we have 2 different series going. So we had to do all that and still make sure that we hit our deadline. So 2023 it was when we were doing that, was a very busy year. But Gravewater Lake, the one that's coming out in March, that was our second one that we submitted to Thomas and Mercer. And when we did, and the notes came back from the developmental editor, there were very few. Because the whole time we were writing it, like, we went back and we rewrote, because it's the 2 different storylines. One of the storylines, we got about halfway through, we just knew that there was something wrong. Like, it just wasn't catchy. So we went back and we rewrote it. Every step along the way, it was WWCD. What would Charlotte do? So when we submitted that book, we were wondering how it was going to come back. And she had so few notes. We were like, okay, great. We took notice of what she said before, and we really try to incorporate that into our writing.
And moving forward, now you have this relationship with them. Do you get with the development editor before you do the manuscript, or are you still having to sell them on each one?
No, not the developmental editor. So the way that it works is we have the agent, and then we have the editor at Thomas and Mercer.
The acquisitions editor.
The acquisitions editor. They're the ones that, read our books and offer the contracts and whatever. So we are able to get with our acquisitions editor and talk about what we want to do next. Like the book that we're finishing up now that we have to submit in March. Basically, we sent them, I think, 5 different potential plots. And
completely different plots.
Yeah. And
different
said,
books.
Which are you interested in? And then they went over and they came back and told us. And the one that they chose was the one that we just did a blurb for and had no development on.
We did like 3 lines, and they got back to
They're
us
like,
and
we
said,
love that one.
You're like, that's the one we tried not to use. Yeah.
They were like, great.
I was actually trying to put them off on that one, but we're like, no, we should just submit another one. So we did this whole thing, and they're like, that's the one we want. And I was like, what are we going to do for this?
That's awesome. Well, so what advice would you give to indie authors who are looking to kind of level up their career, elevate it, and maybe using traditional publishing, or simply just kind of trying to figure out what new creative heights they can kind of reach to?
So I can tell you what we did, because we write, just like you guys, we mostly write in series, because, you get the readers and they're wanting more of the same characters and whatever. But we had this one book, The Last Girl Left, and it's a psychological thriller, and it was a standalone. He actually started it. He did the prologue during our honeymoon when we kind of traveled around, because we also don't like to, I don't think any authors like to just sit in one spot. I don't know. But anyway, for our honeymoon, we got married in Las Vegas, and we stayed there for a month or 2. And then we went to California, and we kind of traveled up and down the coast. So anyway, we were in LA, and I went in to take a shower, and he had an idea. So he wrote this really, really incredibly creepy prologue where if I wasn't already married to him a few weeks before, I think I would second guess it, about a girl under the bed, and this killer just killed all of her friends downstairs and is creeping through the house looking for her. And I'm like, you wrote this while I was in the shower? So anyway, we had the beginning to this book for a long time, and then we talk about it and pick at it. It was going to be actually a ghost story originally, and then horror, and then somehow it turned into a psych thriller. So at the end of the day, we had, the series that we're writing, and we had this one standalone, and we were going to, put it out under AM Strong. And I said to him, why don't we just submit it, because we don't have the opportunity as a single book very often. We're mostly writing in series, and nobody wants to pick those up, once you started the series. So I sent it out to Bookature, and without an agent, we didn't have an agent, and they came back and really liked it and wanted us to bulk up the middle of it. Now, this was our first psych thriller, so we had no idea what we were doing. So we did. We put a new character in, and then we killed her off in the middle of the book and whatever. Nice. And then she wanted us to bulk it up and then send it back to her for consideration. So we did that in a couple of weeks and then send it back to her. And I said to him, well, what if we also send it out to, this other place? Storm Publishing was just starting at that point. I'm like, why don't we just also send it there and just see what they'd say? Well, they both came back on the same day, and they both wanted it. And so, because we have our own business and we're indie publishing, we try to take advantage of opportunity, right? So I think that came back on like a Thursday or Friday. And I said to him, we've got 2 places that want our book. This seems like a good time to maybe throw it out to some agents and see if anybody's interested in negotiating that and making some money off of it too. So over the weekend, I sent out to 15 agents, and then in the next week or so, 13 of them got back, with offers. But our agent one step further before we even signed her and said, I think this book would be perfect for Thomas and Mercer. I just sent it over to one of the editors over there. So
to see what they think.
And we were like, okay, we're signing on with you. So then, of course, Thomas and Mercer came back a few days later. She read it over the weekend, and they wanted it because I guess they normally take a few months, but she was like, they have other offers. So, you're going to have to let us know like right away if you want the book. So that was how we got an agent. We wrote a book and we sent it out. And once we got some interest, it became really, really easy to get agents interested in it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So basically you just basically got to get 2 deals and then say, hey, now I get an agent.
It's easy. No, nothing is easy. No, I hate it when you listen to like authors talk and they're like, I don't know what happened. I never written it before. I just got up at 6 o'clock to 7 o'clock every morning, wrote a book, threw it out there, and I'm a New York Times bestselling author. And we're like, how does that happen?
Yeah, I've actually never talked to anybody that said that. So they certainly haven't been on our show.
We had somebody at a writing club and that's what she said. She's like, oh, I didn't even tell my husband I was writing a book. And then I just wrote between like 5 and 6 in the morning or 5 and 7 in the morning. And I just sent it out and there I am, a New York Times bestseller.
I've got to say though, that if you're writing a book at night, in the middle of the night, and your husband doesn't know, you've already got problems in your marriage because he doesn't miss you in bed.
5 o'clock in the morning is the middle of the night for us.
Yeah.
That is fair. That's fair. So a quick question for you guys that is something we ask everybody, and you can each answer this one because it's kind of going to be pointed for both of you. But what would you consider each of your superpower, but then maybe also your collective superpower?
Mine is listening to Sonya when she wants to talk about the clothing.
That's nice.
Yes.
But
I will not be able to pull clothing on at all anymore. That's going to be it. So
I'm putting a line like that in my next chapter just to annoy you. I guess I don't know whether you call it a superpower, but it probably really is the writing, because that's all I do. Sonya handles the marketing and everything else. I don't really get involved in any of that stuff other than listening to the frustrations when it isn't going the right way.
Amazon did change the algorithm in April 2023, and it has been a lot harder ever since, yes.
Yeah, indeed it has.
His superpower really is writing. He's like right out the gate. It was catchy, it's hooky, it's fast-paced. He ends every chapter on a little cliffhanger. And certainly he really does now, because Charlotte also likes that, by the way. He keeps the chapters short and pacey. And his book, his writing, when I get it, there are very little changes that need to be made, other than he does dragon for his writing. So, typos, like it likes to capitalize everything, and sometimes it hears words wrong.
It also mishears some things very strange and puts strange sentences in that I don't know what I should have said afterwards.
Sometimes I'll call him from the other end of the house and I'll be like, what do you think you meant by this? Because I just can't figure out what the word was supposed to be. Like, I'll do all the words that rhyme with it in my head, But yeah, his superpower is definitely he's a natural writer. Mine is that I am a plotter and I am a plot hole finder. TV is tough, especially when it's not well done. I'll be thinking about something, I'll come out and I'll be like, I think her mother would blah, blah, blah. He's like, her mother's not in this book. And I'm like, yeah, but the more we know about the character, the more realistic the character is going to be. So I kind of think about like the whole picture of the world that the books are in when we're working on one. And then also, I guess my other superpower is the marketing, because it has to be. But together, I think we're strong because he is a natural writer and I'm a natural plotter. So together, we create books that are cohesive and hopefully don't have any plot holes.
You seem like a super team. I mean, in chatting with you and seeing all the bits and pieces that you do, and you fill in the gaps for each other. It seems like a super team. It's great.
You mentioned you're going to put in the pulling on your clothes. Do you ever pop a line in there just for her? Like, I'll write something in my book solely because I know Ashley's going to be the first one to read it, and it's a joke.
No, don't do that. I don't want to edit that. Don't give him the idea. No, he has not.
I don't need to. I put enough in by accident without anything deliberately.
Well, the first few years when he was writing, like maybe the first 6 or 7 Deckers, he was the somewhat king. Like everything was somewhat, and I'm like, be definitive. Or they would half do something. They'd half open the door or whatever.
All right. So we have one last question for you. And Doug has this very fancy wheel. He's going to spin a wheel of questions. And we'll see what we land on. And it's a mixed bag. So let's see.
It's all about the sound effect. Okay. So what is a movie or book series that you will watch or read as soon as it comes out?
Oh, Ted Lasso. He just showed me the other night that they're talking about a season 4, and I'm like, please, please. I always say to my friend, like I got, Drew Strickland.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Drew, he's a friend of ours, yeah.
Yep. So I had recommended it to he and Sarah, and it took them forever. And they just started watching it. I think they watched the whole series, but I think they did it just a few months ago. And I had said to him several times, if there is one show where I could just completely erase my brain and watch it for the first time over again, it would be that one, because it's just catchy. Like I loved everything. I wasn't sure. The first episode, I was like, eh. And then all of a sudden I fell into it, and I just loved everything about it.
It's like the most feel-good show I've ever seen.
That's it. And all the stuff that happens to him, like he just has this sunny disposition at the end of the day. We all wish we had that, right?
Yeah, it really is. It's amazing. They did a really great job of putting it on. So
they did. And his is going to be different because he likes horror and all that stuff.
Well, actually, it's tough. I think I've probably got 2. One of them would be most Star Trek, even though I don't write sci-fi. There have been a few duds. And the other one is probably Stephen King stuff.
That's a mixed bag too, because it depends who, directs and produces and how they adapt the screenplay and all that. So
it does.
You're more reading Stephen King though than watching.
Well, I do. I mean, there's stuff that really is related to the books, but isn't the books. Like, for example, the new there's a series called Welcome to Derry that they're making right now. I don't know when that's coming out, but that's based on. It's basically a prequel to it, but that deals with stuff that isn't in the books. So there's the book adaptations, but there's also a wider world out there where they're making stuff that's just based on characters in the books.
Brilliant. Well, thank you so much for joining us. We really appreciate it. And best of luck moving forward with your new releases coming out and everything that's ahead.
Thank you, Nick and Doug. Thank you for having us on today. We appreciate it.
Absolutely.
Well, thank you to the Strongs, AAM Strong and Sonya Sargent Strong. That was great. They were a lot of fun.
What a partnership they have going, right?
Well, I mean, they're married. That helps. They have that going on.
There is, but they've really found the pieces that fit. They've taken their territory, right, their strengths, and put them together to really make a great team, which is fabulous to see.
I think it's great. Like, the fact that she tells him how women should dress, the whole shoes thing. I mean, that's brilliant. I think that helps, and I think that's something that anybody. Again, I think we reiterate what we said earlier in the intro is that that you got to play to your partner's strengths, kind of fill in your gaps, and this can kind of go back to what we talked with Becca Syme about your strengths and stuff. That we all have our different strengths and we have different boundaries, and we need to how to stay within those boundaries to work and play the game that we're playing, which is to write a book in the end. So,
yeah. And we're both living this partnership now because we both have our spouses involved in the business and balancing that stuff. And it's fabulous from my point of view. And I know from your point of view, having Ashley on board, it's really good, but it's finding the strengths. Again, it's a different business to anything my wife's worked in before. So finding areas that suit her strengths, and she's running with it. She's doing great.
Yeah. Well, and big thanks to our friends at Vellum for their support. You can find a link in our show notes, or you can visit them at vellum.pub. It is fabulous software. We both use it. It is amazing. If you're writing and you're not
every book
there and you're not using it, then you're kind of missing out. I've used all of them before. I mean, and Vellum has so far been the best, and it's great. So also check out our show notes. We have links for the Strong's information as well as our own books. Please make sure to follow us on Facebook and check us out and look for new episodes every 2 weeks.
Till next time, be cool to each other.
Fair winds and following seas.
You've been listening to the Two Authors podcast with Nicholas Harvey and Douglas Pratt. Subscribe on your favourite platform for alerts on new shows coming every 2 weeks.